Our next keynote speaker is Prof. Siang. He's currently the head of Pillar Architectural and Sustainable Design at SUTD. From 2018 to 2021, he was the executive director at Building and Constructor Authority, Singapore. His topic today is Circularity by Design. Prof. Tai, the stage is yours, and you can start your speech.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. While we do that, let me just give you a bit of my background. I'm a practicing architect for about 30 years now, and last 5 years have been the most meaningful time that I have with a wider spread of contact with different aspects of the industry. For 2 years, I was chairing the World Green Building Council, a global NGO of 70 over country members. In fact, I come to China a lot for that reason. And after that, I spent 3 years with the government, heading the industry transformation map for the built environment sector. So that 5 years helped me see a lot of issues on sustainability. And one of the key issues is that we are still not moving fast enough from a linear economy towards a circular economy. And I 100% believe that circularity can be solved by design. And I don't mean just designing things, but the whole process, the whole thinking has to be thought through as a design process, and therefore my title, Circularity by Design. Let me just share with you the vision that I have begun to have conversation with my colleagues in SUTD. And if we want to start on this journey of circularity, what sort of vision should we have? And I put forward the idea of a net zero world by design. So back in 2017, when in the midst of my chairing of the World Green Building Council, we were confronted with a crisis because if you recall, there was a COP conference and we had to seriously put forward a realistic target together with the rest of the built environment industry player. So what is that target if we hope to bring global warming down by 1.5, or at that time we talk about 2 degrees Celsius, and we talk about cutting carbon emissions. And a simple back of the envelope calculation will tell you there's nothing short of a net zero target will ever get us there. But you must remember this was back in 2016. And at that time, those of you who were in the business knows that nobody talks about net zero, and if you talk about net zero, they say you must be crazy. And at best, people were just starting to say, okay, we need to be sustainable. But at that time, we did a calculation. We know that if we don't set a net zero target, we will definitely cross the 2 degrees Celsius global warming. So therefore, we put forward a bold vision for advancing net zero campaign. And I'm pleased to know that in less than 2 years, we start to see a mountain of change. And today we should not hold back, and everyone, in my view, has to embrace the vision of a net zero world. And the net zero world is not a technological vision. It is a holistic vision where lives must be transformed by design, and economy must be driven by circularity, and ultimately we must bring carbon emission down to zero. Can we do it in 50 years as we hope to? I don't know the answer. Can we reach the target by 2050? The way things are progressing doesn't seem so. But my wish is the next 100 years we must do so before we see a very damaged world. And if we have to reach the outer space in order to come back to address Earth problems, let's do it. I think this is going to be a very exciting future for all of us here. So the context faced by all of us, whether it's designers, architects, engineers, All kinds of designers are common, right? You're all familiar with these four things, and I probably don't need to say more except to pick out some of the interesting things that happened recently. Singapore, we pride ourselves to be very strong in infrastructure planning, and we had thought that our drainage system was well designed to cope with a 100-year flash flood. And I'm very serious about it that we are so confident that we do not think that major areas that used to flood in the 1980s will ever flood again. Just last month, it flooded again after 20 years of intervention. So less than 100 years, we are seeing massive issue with rising water. Now, is it due to rising seawater? It's still up for grabs, but I think if you look at the whole ecosystem as a connected world, it's probably connected. Pandemic, I think that's again a major issue. Social unrest, polarization of wealth. It is a complex system that actually all connected together, and we can't cut off one from another. So what are the solutions we have at hand to deal with such complex issue? Those of us in design field will agree with me that we see interesting development in the design evolution, I call it. Again, not strange to you. We have the Renaissance in 1300s, and I call that period design art. Design start to surface and things are bespoke. You have design that are really made by famous artists, craftsmen that are bespoke. That's one of. You don't have a second Mona Lisa painting. You just have one. Beautifully done. Then the Industrial Revolution, as my previous speaker have talked about it. Again, nothing strange for you. It's a powerful movement that saw the power of engine, the power of industry come in to make things affordable to masses. But we have a challenge at hand where things are just made randomly and sometimes blindly for the sake of consumption, for the sake of masses. But do we really need them? I think that's a question we should ask. So I totally agree that we, as designers, we must ask the question, why are we even designing something to add to the waste of this earth? Now comes the digital age. A lot of us in the current time embrace the digitalization revolution, and we say it is the best thing in life. But as you can see that the trend seems to move very much into the IT world rather than the real world until COVID-19. We didn't quite understand where IT revolution is going to take us to, because it seems that you just have better handphones, better computers, better devices. But the real application came in mightily during the COVID-19 scenario. We suddenly saw that things that we were supposed to be locked down and causes us incapacitated has suddenly become possible with digital revolution that connect us even in the times of lockdown, that we can continue to work, economy can continue to thrive in some sectors. So it points to the future that, quite simply, I call it design intelligence, where it is no longer solutions for the bespoke end product. It's no longer designing for the masses, but is designing for personalization, meeting the needs of every individual human on Earth. And at the same time, we will be facing more and more complex fluctuations of the world trends. There'll probably be more pandemic, there'll probably be more disasters, rising urbanization, cities become bigger and bigger, 20 million, 30 million. There'll be more issues with global warming and food and water resiliency, rising seawater, and the unknown X, I call it. So you need design intelligence, the combination of both human power and technological power for us to navigate through a very turbulent 100 years to come. So I make some simple projection as to what I would like to see the next 100 years in terms of design. Firstly, more intelligent products and solutions. I think this will greatly enhance the way we live, work, and play. More personal, with 3D printing, with breakthrough technology, devices that can be attached to individual human beings. Needs can be met individually. But in the field of medication, for example, there's a lot of talk about personal medication and medical care. And I want to always remind ourselves that we want to make sure that in the light of all this technological breakthrough, things has to be affordable. So even if we introduce robotics and automation to make manufacturing more efficient and productive, can we remember that we really had to make things affordable? Because the world, remember, is very much stretched by issue of poverty. So lastly, more recyclable buildings, products might just have to declare the recyclable content in them to the amount of something as high as 90%, so that we don't see waste piling up on this earth. So now I'm going to just quickly move on to the next area about collaboration. Now, you see the vision, you see the excitement of what future holds, but then what do we do as institutions, as businesses? So collaboration is one of my favorite topics because last 3 years I dealt with that. And in the face of this circularity by design, one of the things we need to design is collaboration. There are no two ways to achieve this. So two quick thoughts in terms of collaboration. One is we must address social, economic, and environmental sustainability in a holistic and a triple bottom line approach. We cannot segmentize it. We cannot put them in silos. And next is there must be multilateral collaboration made possible by technologies. No longer can any party work in silos. So this is a very quick analysis of a circular economy comprises of social, economic, and environment. I won't go into detail, but you can imagine what a full circle should mean for your sector of design. And quick analysis is that where are the current incumbent players? They are all on the right side because of the legacy of linear economy. And governments are very familiar with this. MNCs are very familiar with this. SMEs are there in fragments, but everyone knows how to bring design to sales, for example, to operation. But the gaps really lies in the left side to close the loop. There isn't enough education or understanding of circular economy. There isn't enough behavioral change in consumption, and disassembly of products, recycling of products are only just begun. And most critically is the culture of a circular people, I would call it. So we need to start to emphasize the importance of a circular culture in our societies. So we are just beginning our baby steps here in SUTV. We start to look at two forms of efforts. While on the ground up, we have institutions, SMEs, small companies that want to close the loop in segments, in areas and territories that we are familiar with. We must begin to take the conversation up to the government, up to major MNC players to say, okay, where are you planning in terms of sustainability reporting? Are you able to take a strategic change of your business model to close the loop of circular economy? And that's where we bring top-down and ground-up efforts simultaneously to close the loop in a joint effort, co-creation. And I continue to maintain that this process has to be designed. So we're not talking about design of products and services, we're talking about designing co-creation itself, designing collaboration. And this is going to be very important, a strategic move for us to reach a circularity by design. So with that, I come to the end of my talk and presentation, and I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Tai. We have many questions from our audience. The first one is, you mentioned public, private, and people sectors. Do you think which one of them plays the leading role?
Oh, it varies from country to country, actually. I've been to countries, okay, like, if I may say, I think China and Singapore are very similar. Our governments are very concerned and very responsible to take the lead in multiple sectors. So it's quite clear, government takes the lead. And there are countries where quite the opposite happened. I've been to South America, for example, in Brazil. My friends are trying to lead the green building movement. It has to be ground up there because with changing governments and challenges faced by government, there isn't funding actually even from government. So they have to devise ways where small things, small design innovations, small design interventions at household level, that every citizen could do something to contribute towards sustainability. So that's an extreme opposite of the so-called ground-up approach. So yeah, both has to happen in this world.
Okay. There's another two questions. I think they are highly related. The first one is, to reach a net zero world, the key is the will or the capability. The other one is, when we talk about, the other one is highly related to, okay, so it's about a nation's power or people's will. So I think these two is highly related.
Yeah. Firstly, on net zero or even circular economy, I dare to say there isn't enough education, and there isn't even enough sharing in forums like this. So we need to ramp up the education part on what even circular economy is at multiple levels. First, I will start with the corporate and the government level. So someone need to take this message quickly to all the big organizations and share with them. But I would say it's going to be easier because of sustainability reporting. Most of the MNCs have no qualms about changing their business model now to look at the circular economy. The biggest challenge lies in actually the current citizens. And this is something which is very difficult for NGOs to do. And that's where I hope governments all over the world could start to pledge to take this education down to the citizen level through campaigns, simple campaigns. The third one, I think, is not too difficult, is actually the schools and institutions. I think the Ministry of Education could easily incorporate something into the curriculum and make sure that our next generation, those people who are still in their schooling age, up to 21 years old or 24, must have an understanding of circular and net zero. Your next question is the will or the power of people. This is something very powerful, but in order to communicate circularity to people and move them, you need a very good strategies in terms of campaigns and communications. Because when you speak to millions of citizens, you cannot have very complex scientific reasoning as to why we should go circularity and net zero. Somebody has to devise a very simple message so that they understand the why. I think, again, I reference to the last speaker. Understanding why is not just for designer. In fact, understanding why is so important for the end user, for the consumer. Because if they understand why net zero, if they understand why circular economy, it makes the designer's life, the technology's life so much better. We won't have a problem in designing. And I just want to give you a quick example. I believe this has already happened. In the green building circle, which China, you're very familiar, Singapore, we're very familiar. We don't think in the past that we could actually have 100% green buildings. But today, it's starting to be possible because you start to see ordinary citizens begin to ask the question, is the apartment that I live in a green apartment? Is this building designed according to green standards before I even buy the apartment? Now, 10 years ago, I would say this is virtually impossible, but today it's happening. So I want to submit to the audience that don't think of it as an impossibility. The people's will and determination can be shaped. And just in the green building sector, it's already begun.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Our last question, I think, is from our students. It's the topic related to social design. So in your opinion, what's the future trend of social design? I think as a career, the social designer.
I'm not familiar with the field of social design, but I must imagine that in all my interactions with NGOs, this is going to be a greatly needed field of discipline or study, if there isn't one already. Because for so long we emphasize on STEM, science, technology, and engineering, we are missing out the very crucial part of the last mile connection with people. And this is almost like the oil in the engine. You have created, we're good at making engines, but we need the lubricant and the oil now so that people can use the engine in the right way. So if there isn't one such thing called a social design discipline, I think it's about time to begin. For so long, we're dependent on volunteers, we're dependent on people from other fields converting themselves to play this role. But let's professionalize it.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Prof. Tai. Again, your sharing is very inspiring, and I think our team is looking forward to visiting SUTD soon. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Yeah.
See you.
Bye-bye.